Nos encontramos con el profesor Heuer, el director general del CERN en Ginebra, Suiza, para hablar precisamente de las grandes exploraciones en las fronteras de la física que se están realizando aquí en este espacio.
So we will talk about the beginning of the universe. How did everything begin? How did the universe develop? But we will also talk about what is it for science in society, how to bring science to society, how to work together with arts, how to apply physics in medicine. So these are things which we will talk, and we will talk about this when we see you at the electric ship.
Aquí, en Canal 22. Bienvenidos a este programa especial de la oveja eléctrica. Una noticia asombra al mundo. Hemos hallado la piedra angular que le faltaba a la física de las partículas. Así dice el físico Rolf Heuer, director del CERN, el Centro Europeo para la Investigación Nuclear. Se descubre así una partícula subatómica que concuerda con el largamente buscado bosón de Higgs, conocido popularmente como la partícula de Dios. La oveja eléctrica estuvo en el colisionador de partículas en Ginebra, Suiza, el gran laboratorio que explora el origen mismo de la materia y el universo. De eso conversamos en una entrevista exclusiva con Rolf Heuer, que nos habla de la fascinación que produce esta búsqueda. Professor Heuer, thank you very much for this interview for Channel 22 in Mexico.
Very welcome.
And, you know, Isidore Rabbi, that was a Nobel Prize, once said, why do you fail to communicate the adventure of science? And I know that you are really very engaged in trying to spread science. What are you trying to do with this in the context of CERN?
Well, I think our advantage at the moment is that we have a flagship concerning experimental particle physics, and that's the Large Hadron Collider. This flagship is an exciting project. It's maybe one of the biggest scientific endeavors mankind has undertaken up to now, or is undertaking. And I think we can use the attention to this flagship and to its results, to its fascinating science, to also engage with the public. And we should not underestimate the interest of the public in science, because in the past people were just not fulfilling this interest, but there is a lot of interest. When we give outreach talks, and we have to give more and more, which is good, which is great, the auditoria are full, yeah? The lecture halls are filled with people, and these people are all interested, and I think we have to satisfy that interest.
That means that there is a fascination theme. Let's talk about this fascination that has to do with exploration you're doing.
Yeah. Well, what do we want to understand? Well, we want to understand what are the basic building blocks of matter, so what are we consisting of? And how are the forces acting between these building blocks? So we are looking into the microcosm. And the fascination here is that at the same time, when you look into the microcosm, you look in the start of the universe. You look into the early universe. So you connect the birth of the universe with the microcosm, or vice versa. And I think everybody is intrigued from the question, where do we come from? How did everything begin? Yeah? How did the universe form? How did it develop? And these are the questions we are addressing. And I think everybody in the world is fascinated by this. Because even if you don't ask this question every day to you, sometimes you are asking this question to you, and sometimes you would like to have an answer. And we are trying to find at least some of the answers to these questions.
And in this way, you are trying to explore one of the fundamental blocks of physics that would be the Higgs search. And I would like to know, where do we stand nowadays regarding Higgs research?
We are in an exciting phase concerning the search for the Higgs. The Higgs particle or the Higgs mechanism is the most accepted mechanism how fundamental particles acquire mass. And for this we need the so-called Higgs particle. And we have already made the window where this particle could exist in its mass, the mass value, very small. However, in this small value mass window, we have intriguing fluctuations. We will have an answer on the Shakespeare question for the Higgs boson. To be or not to be. Okay?
What alternative theories would come about?
It could be a different type of particle which does it, but we don't know that particle yet. It could be another force, yeah. Instead of the four forces, we might have a fifth force. However, it could also be something where the theorists are not yet thinking of. That would be the most exciting, yeah. But one thing is very important for me, that is that within the energy range which we cover with our Large Hadron Collider, we will find this mechanism, be it the Higgs boson or be it something else. At the moment, it could well look like the Higgs.
Por el momento, el portavoz del experimento CMS para detectar el Higgs, Joe Incandela, explica que los resultados son preliminares, pero la señal que están viendo es dramática. Dice el científico, es realmente una nueva partícula. Sabemos que debe ser un bosón y es el bosón más pesado jamás encontrado. Su nivel de confianza estadística es de 5 sigmas, superior al 99.99%. Rolf Heuer, director general del CERN, señala que tendrán que investigar las características de esta partícula, de este gran hallazgo que asombra al mundo científico. A continuación, nos habla de otras importantes investigaciones que se realizan en el colisionador de partículas en Ginebra, Suiza. You know, something very interesting is that when you focus your interest or the world attention is on Higgs particle, then it doesn't come into focus another very exciting research that you are also doing that is as important maybe as the discovery of Higgs. Please tell us about it. Which kind of experiments or of which kind of discoveries you're also expecting with this beautiful
machine behind us.
Yes.
Well, you see, it took us 40, 50 years to now describe and hopefully fully understand, once we have found the Higgs particle, just 5% of the universe. 5% of the matter and energy in the universe we can describe. That's a visible universe. That took us 4 decades. Now we still have to discover what is the other 95%. We know that the other part is the so-called dark universe. 1/4 of it is dark matter, which also clumps like normal matter, and 3/4 is dark energy, which drives the universe apart. We don't know very much about dark matter. We know even less about dark energy. And our research is now also looking what is beyond this visible universe. What is the dark universe? So I'm really hoping that the Large Hadron Collider will shed the first light into the dark universe. That's one of the very intriguing questions for the next years. And another very important question is, why are we at all here? Because, yeah? Because at the beginning of the universe, matter and antimatter were created in equal quantities. But now it's all matter. So nature has introduced a very small asymmetry between matter and antimatter. 1 part in 10 billion more matter than antimatter. And this 1 part in 10 billion is sitting here and sitting here. All the rest has become energy. Yeah? All the rest has annihilated. So how this happened, we don't know really. So again, this is research which we are doing.
But how? How can you explore it? What kind of experiments are you proving?
It's essentially the same type of experiment. You would look for new particles to be produced. Yeah? New particles which were also produced at the beginning of the universe and which are now forming the dark matter. We could produce them at the Large Hadron Collider and then show that these particles are existing. Yeah? Like the Higgs particle, we would see a certain signature, a certain image in our experiments, and then we could say, as we could say this could be a Higgs particle, we could also say this is a new type of particle, which then, if it has the properties which we need for dark matter, then we could say it's a candidate for dark matter. So we are just running one experiment all the time. And this one experiment all the time serves multi-purposes. Our scientists, they use all the same data which we take with this experiment, which runs for many years, but some of them need only a few days to find something. The others need many years. And some of them might need the whole time of the running until they come to a limit of what they could find.
But that means that we don't have yet any evidence of the kind of evidence we are seeing at Higgs.
No, we don't have that yet. So we need to run longer, and we will also run at higher energy in a few years, and this will open another window. So there is a large space which we have to explore, and we are just at the beginning of a 20 years program.
Después de un corte, regresamos a este programa especial de la oveja eléctrica, en donde le traemos una entrevista exclusiva con Rolf Heuer, director general del CERN, sobre el colisionador de partículas en Ginebra, Suiza, un gran laboratorio que explora el origen de la materia y el universo. Estamos de regreso en este programa especial de la oveja eléctrica, en donde le traemos una entrevista exclusiva con Rolf Heuer, director general del CERN, sobre los experimentos que se harán en el colisionador de partículas para seguir sondeando un sueño muy antiguo: conocer el origen de la materia y el universo. What are you heading to? What are you envisioning to do with all this upgrade?
Well, what we have to do is, well, first of all, it's a 27 kilometers ring here, which you see, okay?
Yes, yes.
In this ring, there are 1,200 very long magnets in the whole ring. And we have to open the whole accelerator chain, all interconnects between the magnets we have to open, and we have to refurbish them. We have to make them better. And then we can go a factor 2 higher in energy. Now, when you go higher in energy, then you can produce new particles with higher mass. And this is what we hope then will open the window into the dark universe.
Into the dark universe. That's the next steps.
That's the next steps, but that will take a few more years.
And in this regard also, one area that is very interesting has to do with Einstein's dream of a unified field theory.
Yeah.
And we have some theories that are very interesting, but just theoretically. And you are here with experiments trying to prove what is just theoretical. I would like to know what is happening in the area of supersymmetry particles.
This is exactly one of the models, one of the theories which could give candidates for dark matter. Yeah? So we are constantly, or the experiments are constantly searching for supersymmetric particles. Unfortunately, they haven't seen any supersymmetric particles yet. What does this mean? The supersymmetric theory has a wide parameter space, okay? A very wide parameter space. So if we don't find yet supersymmetric particles, that means the wide parameter space is becoming slightly smaller, but not very much. So it still quite open. And only I think once we go to twice the energy, then we will be either able to find supersymmetric particles or to shrink the parameter space of supersymmetry even further. Of course, I hope we find some particles, because then this would be excellent. These would be excellent candidates for the dark matter.
And you know, when you were a student of physics, maybe you had a dream of what to search for.
For the smallest.
For the smallest.
Yes. Well, you see, I was always very much fascinated by physics, because it is logic, and it's clear that there are results, and so everything is logic. And everything in physics is the basis of our daily life. You don't feel physics, but if physics would not be there, you would not be there yourself, yeah? So this really fascinated me. And I wanted always to investigate what are the smallest constituents of matter, what are the smallest building blocks we are consisting of. The dream of the Greek people, atomos, the thing which you cannot divide up. And what we are doing, the problem is, the smaller the object which you have to investigate, the more powerful, of course, has to be your microscope. Yeah? The smaller the object, the more powerful your microscope. Unfortunately, nature has done it like this, that the more powerful your microscope, the larger your microscope has to be. The more energetic your microscope has to be. So you go from the normal microscope to electron microscope to small accelerators, and you finally go to this accelerator.
27 kilometers.
27 kilometers, which is the largest microscope on Earth. Yeah? And now with this largest microscope on Earth, you look deep into the microcosm, into the smallest particles, my old dream. And since many years now, one has realized that looking into the smallest, at the same time you look into the beginning of the largest.
Because of the levels of energy implied.
Because of the levels of energy implied. Yeah? On the one hand, it's a resolution power. On the other hand, it's the level of energy implied. And that's the fascination, also the fascination for the young people who go into physics. Yeah? The smallest, the largest, cosmology, everything goes together.
Efectivamente, todo va de la mano. Enseguida, Rolf Heuer, director general del CERN, nos habla de las implicaciones de esta exploración. When you're saying this about knowing yourself by knowing your atoms, I remember that George Walt, that won the Nobel Prize, once said, physicists are the way that atoms have to know themselves. What kind of amazement it gives you to see this powerful interrelatedness that you see when you're probing really deep and deep into nature, and see that when you are at the heart of the microcosm, you are also exploring the macrocosm?
Well, it makes me proud of the fact that mankind is able to do such experiments, to perform it, to understand nature better, to understand the beginning of the universe better. And in addition, at the same time, because this is a world machine, a machine for the world, used by the world, it also makes you understand your partners, your colleagues, your friends better. Yeah? It's fantastic. It's also a sociological experiment, because no region can do that alone. We need the brain power from all the different regions. And they all work together. Yeah? It's really a world machine where the world participates and the people working at it understand each other. Isn't that fantastic?
Well, you know, it's so difficult to work in such a project with thousands of people, in this case of scientists, without this becoming a Babel Tower. So we were talking about what would be some kind of keys to understand of what is happening here.
I think there's one crucial difference to the Babel Tower. And the crucial difference is that we all speak the same language. And this language is science. science is a universal language. And this is why this is not a Babel Tower, but why this is a success. I think that's the key issue, to my mind at least.
Enseguida regresamos a este programa especial de la oveja eléctrica. Hablaremos de los frutos del conocimiento que arrojan los hallazgos del colisionador de partículas del CERN. Estamos de regreso en este programa especial de la oveja eléctrica. Le traemos una entrevista exclusiva con Rolf Heuer, director general del CERN, sobre los hallazgos del colisionador de partículas y la revolución que el conocimiento y la curiosidad traen a nuestras vidas. What would you expect to be the fruits, the concrete fruits of this project? Because, you know, this is a basic science experiment, and it's based on curiosity. Right. But nevertheless, curiosity gives fruits.
Yeah. Well, you have to distinguish between the research, its results from the research itself and from the technologies which we need to do to make in order to do our research. So let's first talk shortly about the technologies. One of the main technologies coming from here is the World Wide Web. The world would look different without the World Wide Web. I think everybody agrees. It was a sort of paradigm change when the World Wide Web was introduced. And the World Wide Web was born here, and that's a message to the young people who are younger than, let's say, 20, who have never seen a world without World Wide Web. And they should not think that the World Wide Web was born at the moment of the Big Bang. It's not true. It was born 1989 here at CERN. Okay, that's one example. But of course, you always expect also something out of the research itself, yeah? And this is, of course, much more difficult to predict because, as you said, it's curiosity-driven. It gives you a lot of knowledge. However, when and where to be able to apply it is always very difficult to predict. And I think the best answer on the application of basic research was given by Michael Faraday. He was searching or investigating electricity, yeah? Electromagnetism. So, he was once asked, and I don't remember exactly, was it his finance minister or his prime minister? He was asked the question, Mr. Faraday, and what can you use this for? And he looked at his minister and said, honestly, sir, I don't know. But maybe one day you can tax it. I think this was a perfect answer, yeah? And it is like this. I mean, you know that you will, at some stage, will be able to apply it, yeah? But you don't know when, and you don't know where.
You were in an oncologist congress just recently, and you have very good news to share with us in that regard.
Oh, yes. I mean, you see, accelerators can be used for research. Most of the accelerators all over the world are in hospitals, that are used in medical applications, and in industry. In medical application, for example, for cancer therapy, you use accelerators. Then instrumentation, detectors, which we are developing because we use them in our big experiments here. They are today used in the hospital for the positron emission tomography and MRI, yeah? For diagnostic application. And don't forget, PET, the positron emission tomography, the P is the positron. Positron is the antiparticle to the electron, is antimatter. It was introduced around a bit more than 80 years ago. And everybody thinks antimatter is mysterious. It is not. You use it in hospitals, yeah? So you see how basic science can be applied in hospital, for society also, not immediately, but after some years. And the reason for this conference and why I'm myself also excited about this conference is that we get into a dialogue between medical doctors, biologists, and physicists. Once we know what they need, then we can help them. And once when they know what we can offer, they can ask us to help them. Yeah? And therefore, I think it's very important to have this networking between the different disciplines. And this is what I really like at that conference. And I hope that this is increasing the interdisciplinary work between doctors, physicists and biologists.
Algo interesante es que cada profesión nos brinda un panorama de nuestro peculiar universo, para bien o para mal, porque vemos el mundo en las categorías que estamos acostumbrados a ver. Le comenté a Heuer una expresión de Abraham Maslow: cuando nuestra única herramienta es un martillo, todo lo vemos en forma de clavo. Esto es lo que nos contestó.
That's a danger, I agree.
That's a danger, but it's also an advantage.
I think you have to be able to open your mind, yeah, and to share with other people your thoughts, but also to be at the same time receptive to the thoughts of the others, because otherwise you don't develop. Yeah?
Exactly.
Now, the advantage to be a physicist is that you think very logic and to the point. The disadvantage to be a physicist is that you think very logic and to the point. Because then sometimes it's difficult to discuss with other people because you have to be open enough not to think directly to the point, but maybe to think first to the right and then to the left and then to the point. So it's very important to how to say it, to be able to go away a little bit from your own thinking into another way of thinking. And one way of doing that, to my mind, is to open science to arts and to open arts to science. So this is why we have now started also a program here at CERN, which is called Artists in Residence. So we do not only collide particles, we also collide artists with scientists and then see what comes out. And you see, then we see how artists are seeing our science, how they interpret it, how they make it visible. And the scientist has to learn to talk to the artist so that the artist understands what they are doing. And I think that's one way of opening the mind and also opening to society.
And you know something beautiful? While discovering that asymmetry is key of nature, art has taught us that long before.
Yeah, absolutely. Look back. I take one example, that's Leonardo da Vinci. Scientist and artist at the same time. Yeah? At some stage they were much closer together. Today they are apart. Let's bring them together a little bit more again. That will help us all.
Professor Heuer, really, thank you. Thank you very much for this interview.
Welcome. It was a pleasure.
Se trata no solamente de la colisión de partículas para revelar los bloques fundamentales de la materia y del universo. Se trata también de la colisión de ideas, del encuentro de pensamientos distintos para celebrar el conocimiento, para celebrar un hallazgo. No se necesita ser novelista para gozar de una gran novela. No se necesita ser científico para emocionarnos ante las grandes noticias que nos trae la ciencia a través de la oveja eléctrica aquí en Canal 22.